Charleston White just made a shocking claim about the death of King Vaughn, saying the killer did God's work. But the latest footage tells an entirely different story, with explosive revelations that will leave you questioning everything. Was King Vaughn's death truly an accident, or was there something darker at play? Stick around as we dive into the untold details and shocking new evidence that's resurfacing.
The night that changed everything. November 6th, 2020, what should have been a night of celebration turned into one of hip-hop's most tragic moments. King Vaughn, fresh off the release of his debut album, was enjoying the night at Opium nightclub before heading to the Monaco Hookah Lounge around 3:20 a.m. But as fate would have it, what seemed like a typical night out quickly spiraled into chaos. King Vaughn, along with his crew, ran into Quando Rondo and his associates in the parking lot. The confrontation started with words, but it didn't take long for things to escalate. King Vaughn, known for his tough persona, immediately punched Quando Rondo, sending him to the ground. His crew didn't hesitate to join the attack, raining down blows on Rondo as he scrambled to get away. But the situation soon became deadly. Lil Tim, who was with Quando's crew, appeared from behind a vehicle, brandishing a gun. As shots rang out, the scene turned into total mayhem. Vaughn was hit in the torso and all hell broke loose. Nearby off-duty police officers working security at the lounge quickly drew their weapons, adding to the chaos as they tried to intervene. As King Vaughn's friends rushed him to the hospital hoping for a miracle, Lil Tim and Quando Rondo also made their way to the same medical facility. Both men had been shot in the crossfire. Strangely enough, the two groups, despite their violent encounter just moments before, ended up at the hospital together, but not a single shot was fired between them there. The official story was clear. Vaughn died from gunshot wounds during the altercation, but with new footage, recent testimonies, and growing speculation, things might not be as simple as they seem.
The aftermath and legal battle. In the days that followed King Vaughn's tragic death, the legal saga surrounding the shooting started to unfold. The man responsible for pulling the trigger, Lil Tim, was arrested the following day while being treated for his own gunshot wounds at Grady Hospital. Charged with felony murder, he faced serious consequences. But the situation took an unexpected turn. Despite the severity of the charges, Lil Tim's legal team managed to secure him a $100,000 bond, a decision that stunned many, considering the non-bondable nature of murder charges in Georgia. By March 2021, he was released from custody and the case became a focal point in the media. But for Lil Tim, the legal battle wasn't over. In interviews after his release, Lil Tim was surprisingly calm. When asked about the shooting, his response was short and to the point. He was simply protecting his little brother. His nonchalant demeanor only added fuel to the fire, with many questioning whether he truly understood the gravity of what had happened. He later addressed rumors about a $1 million bounty on his head, dismissing them as exaggerated. But even with the legal victory, the specter of the shooting haunted him. He expressed some regret, admitting in one interview, "I was like, damn, if Brian did that stupid last night, his would have been a lie." But he also dismissed claims made by Vaughn's ex-girlfriend, Asian Doll, who insisted that Lil Tim wasn't the one who killed Vaughn. According to her, the police had even said Tim wasn't responsible. However, Lil Tim wasn't having it. To him, it seemed like just another attempt for attention. Despite the personal drama, the case was far from over. In August 2023, nearly 3 years after the incident, all charges against Lil Tim were dropped, citing self-defense as the key reason. But did the legal system really get it right, or was there something deeper happening behind the scenes? The unanswered questions and growing speculation. With charges dropped and Lil Tim free, the story seemed like it was winding down. But the truth behind King Vaughn's death was far from clear. As the years passed, whispers of conspiracy and questions about the night's events only grew louder. New revelations and footage have continued to emerge, sparking even more curiosity and doubt. One of the most unsettling claims came from Vaughn's cousin, Beau, who stated that Vaughn had survived not one, but 2 surgeries and was expected to pull through. Beau even claimed that Vaughn had been scheduled for a 3rd surgery, but tragically died after allegedly getting out of bed and fighting with nurses, demanding his gun. This shocking detail was a bombshell. If true, it raises several questions. How did Beau know these specifics, especially considering Vaughn's sister, Kayla, was not at the hospital at the time? She had been at the club earlier, but left after hearing the news. The whole situation seemed increasingly bizarre. Adding fuel to the fire, Beau made another startling claim. Vaughn's usual bulletproof truck had been mysteriously swapped out for a regular vehicle that night. This wasn't just an inconvenience. It was a huge red flag. Why would someone make such a drastic change when Vaughn was a high-profile artist with known enemies? To Beau, this wasn't just a coincidence. It felt intentional, like the odds were stacked against Vaughn that night. Theories began to emerge that King Vaughn was set up, and surprisingly, one name kept coming up in the discussions: Vaughn's supposed friend and label boss, Lil Durk. The idea that someone close to Vaughn could have played a role in his death shocked many, but the timing of events was hard to ignore. Could there have been a deeper connection between Durk's legal troubles and Vaughn's tragic end? With so many strange details, it's no wonder that the story continues to unfold with more speculation than ever.
The connection to Lil Durk and the legal battle. As the theory surrounding King Vaughn's death continued to swirl, one name that kept popping up was Lil Durk. While many saw him as a close friend and collaborator of Vaughn, the timing of certain legal events began to raise eyebrows. The 2 rappers were more than just label mates. They were co-defendants in a serious attempted murder case stemming from an earlier shooting in Atlanta. This case had the potential to send both men to prison for years, a high-stakes situation for both. However, in October 2022, nearly 2 years after Vaughn's death, all charges against Durk were mysteriously dropped. The prosecution stated that there wasn't enough evidence to move forward with the case, which seemed strange considering the evidence that had initially pointed to Durk. A female witness at the scene claimed she saw Durk pull a firearm during the altercation, and surveillance footage reportedly captured him firing shots at the victim. So why were the charges dropped? According to court documents, Durk's lawyers maintained that although Durk was present at the scene, he wasn't involved in the shooting. However, many fans and industry insiders couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't adding up. One statement from the Georgia District Attorney added fuel to the fire. They stated, if co-defendant Devon Bennett, aka King Vaughn, had not died in 2020, he would have been indicted for this incident. This statement sparked suspicions that Durk might have cooperated with authorities to avoid charges, potentially implicating Vaughn in the process. The theory gained traction, particularly when former members of Vaughn's gang, O-Block, speculated that Durk might have provided information to authorities to clear his name. Even controversial figures like Charleston White weighed in, accusing Durk of snitching on Vaughn to beat the charges. As the case continued to unfold, the question remained, did Lil Durk benefit from Vaughn's death in more ways than one?
The conspiracy. Was Vaughn set up? As the layers of the King Vaughn tragedy continued to unfold, one theory that gained traction was the idea that Vaughn may have been set up by those closest to him. The rumors, whispers, and strange details surrounding the events that night seemed to point towards something far more sinister than just a random altercation gone wrong. From mysterious changes in vehicles to unanswered questions about Vaughn's final moments, the speculation has only grown over the years. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence supporting the setup theory came from Vaughn's cousin, Beau. Beau revealed that on the night of the shooting, Vaughn's bulletproof truck,
typically a staple of his security, had been swapped out for a regular vehicle. This wasn't a simple mistake. Vaughn, who was a rising star with numerous enemies, wouldn't have traded in his bulletproof protection for a standard vehicle, especially when he was known to be involved in high-stakes situations. The idea that someone close to Vaughn could have orchestrated this switch sent shockwaves through his family and fans. Moreover, there were peculiarities surrounding the timing of Vaughn's actions. According to Bo, Vaughn had been informed that Quando Rondo was in the parking lot, which prompted him to jump out of the car and confront him. But the identity of the individual who passed on this information remains a mystery. And Bo himself admitted that he didn't know who had told Vaughn about Rondo's presence. Was this person a friend, or was it someone with ulterior motives? Adding to the intrigue was the odd behavior of Vaughn's associates, including Track 100, who admitted that something just felt off about Vaughn that night. His demeanor wasn't the same, and it seemed like he was walking into something that wasn't just a regular night out. With these strange and unexplainable details, the question remained, was King Vaughn set up by someone close to him, or was this all just an unfortunate series of events?
The role of Lil Durk and the complex web of allegiances. As more details emerged about the night King Vaughn was killed, one question continued to resonate among fans and industry insiders alike. Did Lil Durk have a hand in Vaughn's death? It may sound like a wild theory, especially considering the close relationship they shared, but there were key moments that raised suspicions. The two had been inseparable, often seen together in the studio, on stage, and publicly supporting each other. But in the wake of Vaughn's death, things began to look more complicated. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence is the timing of the legal developments surrounding Durk's own charges. In 2020, both he and Vaughn faced a serious legal case for an attempted murder charge related to a shooting in Atlanta. This was a high-risk situation that could have landed both men behind bars for years, yet nearly 2 years after Vaughn's death, Durk's charges were mysteriously dropped. The official explanation from the prosecution was that there wasn't enough evidence to proceed, but that raised many red flags. What didn't sit right with fans was the apparent coincidence of the dropped charges. Durk had been a key figure in the case, with substantial evidence against him, including witness testimonies and surveillance footage. A female witness even stated that Durk had been seen firing a weapon during the altercation, and footage backed up her claim. Despite this, Durk walked free, leaving many wondering if there was more to the story. Could Durk have cooperated with authorities to clear his name at the cost of implicating Vaughn? Some fans believe that Durk may have made a deal to avoid charges, possibly even pointing the finger at Vaughn, who could no longer defend himself. With Durk's lawyers claiming he wasn't involved, but the evidence suggesting otherwise, the question of whether Durk's involvement was part of a bigger scheme remained unanswered. The potential for betrayal added a dark layer to the tragedy, making it harder for anyone to truly understand what happened that night.
The growing theories was the death orchestrated by those closest to Vaughn. As the years have passed since King Vaughn's untimely death, the narrative surrounding his murder has become more complex and riddled with suspicions. One of the chilling theories that have surfaced in recent years is the possibility that Vaughn's death was orchestrated by those closest to him, people who were meant to protect him, not harm him. This theory, though shocking, has gained traction due to the strange and unexplained events that took place on the night he was killed. One of the key elements fueling this theory involves the timeline and Vaughn's behavior that night. According to his cousin, Bo, Vaughn's usual bulletproof truck had been swapped out for a regular vehicle. This raised immediate concerns. Why would anyone, especially someone so high profile as Vaughn, agree to travel in a non-armored vehicle when he was aware of the dangers he faced on a daily basis? Vaughn had a reputation for being a target, and the decision to switch vehicles seemed out of character. Was this a simple mistake,
Or was it part of a larger plan? Adding to the suspicions, Vaughn's actions in the parking lot were equally strange. As mentioned earlier, someone from Vaughn's crew supposedly informed him that Quando Rondo was there, prompting him to jump out of the car and initiate the confrontation. However, the identity of the person who passed on this information has never been revealed. Was this a trusted associate or someone with ulterior motives? Bo himself expressed doubt about the situation, saying, "Something don't seem genuine." His feelings were shared by many fans who pointed out the oddities surrounding Vaughn's movements and choices that night. Even more unsettling was the lack of concrete answers about who was behind the actions that led to Vaughn's death. Were his closest allies the ones who set him up, knowingly or unknowingly? As more details continue to surface, it's clear that Vaughn's death was more than just a senseless act of violence. It's a case filled with unanswered questions, suspicious circumstances, and the possibility of betrayal from those Vaughn trusted most.
The final moments, hospital secrets, and hidden truths. As the investigation into King Vaughn's death continued, one of the most chilling aspects of the case became the mystery surrounding his final moments. While the official narrative states that Vaughn succumbed to his injuries at the hospital after undergoing 2 surgeries, new revelations have cast doubt on this version of events. Could there have been more to Vaughn's death than the public was told? And why does the official story leave so many unanswered questions? Vaughn's cousin Bo made a shocking claim that has sent waves through the discussion surrounding Vaughn's death. He stated that Vaughn had actually survived 2 surgeries and was expected to make it. However, just after the second surgery, something happened that caused his condition to rapidly deteriorate. Vaughn allegedly got out of bed, started fighting with nurses, and demanded his gun. This shocking sequence of events, according to Bo, caused Vaughn to go into shock and ultimately led to his death. But there's a huge issue with this account. How could Bo know these details when Vaughn's sister Kayla wasn't even at the hospital at the time? She had reportedly left the scene after hearing about the shooting and didn't return. This discrepancy has only fueled speculation. If Vaughn's story is true, it raises serious questions about Vaughn's care in those final moments. Was someone in the hospital involved in what happened to him? Could Vaughn's outburst have been a response to something he uncovered? Or was he being manipulated by people close to him? The idea that he could have been in a position to fight nurses and demand a weapon suggests a chaotic, potentially orchestrated scenario. In addition, Bo's claims about Vaughn's behavior point to a deeper issue: the lack of clarity around Vaughn's actual cause of death. The official autopsy report has never been made public, and this has only added to the cloud of confusion. With ballistic evidence still unconfirmed and key details left out, many are left questioning whether the truth will ever be fully revealed. Vaughn's death is an unresolved tragedy that continues to raise more questions than answers. Was his death truly a result of the initial gunfire, or was there a more sinister force at play in the hospital? The truth remains as elusive as ever, shrouded in layers of suspicion and uncertainty. The police angle. Who fired the fatal shot? The tragic death of King Vaughn has not only been clouded by suspicions surrounding those closest to him, but also by a lack of clarity about the role of the police on the night of the shooting. Official reports from the Atlanta Police Department and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation state that Vaughn was struck by gunfire during the initial altercation between his crew and Quando Rondo's group before the officers intervened. The APD made it clear that Vaughn was struck by gunfire during the exchange and that the police fired their weapons only after the situation escalated. However, this official narrative has been challenged by many who suspect that the police may have played a larger role in Vaughn's death than what is being disclosed. While it is confirmed that officers fired their weapons, it remains unclear whether any of those shots struck King Vaughn. The APD denied rumors that Vaughn was shot by law enforcement, but with conflicting reports from witnesses and no public release of the full autopsy, it is impossible to know for sure. One of the key reasons for suspicion is the ambiguity surrounding the ballistic evidence. With multiple armed individuals involved in the incident, there's been speculation about whether it was the police who inadvertently fired the fatal shot. The GBI's investigation into the use of force by the officers involved has yet to resolve the question of who caused Vaughn's fatal injuries. This uncertainty has led some to ask whether the confusion surrounding the gunfire was intentional, potentially to shield law enforcement from blame. Adding to the mystery, King Vaughn's manager, Track 100, was quick to warn against spreading misinformation about Vaughn's final moments. He publicly refuted unverified claims about Vaughn being killed by police officers, but the lack of transparency about the specifics of the incident only fueled conspiracy theories. If Vaughn was indeed caught in a crossfire between rival groups and law enforcement, the question remains, was he an unintended casualty of a chaotic and poorly handled situation? As the investigation continues, many still wonder whether the full truth about what happened that night will ever be made public. With conflicting stories, a lack of transparency, and a cloud of suspicion hanging over the police's involvement, the mystery of who fired the fatal shot remains one of the darkest aspects of Vaughn's death.